You're listening to The DJ Doran Show, a Doran Omni Media production. Warning, The DJ Doran Show contains adult language, mature content, cerebral debate, and thought-provoking conversation. Listener discretion is advised. Call 312-235-2281 to be a part of the discussion. That's 312-235-2281. And now, Chicago's perspicacious host of your sane radio obsession, DJ Doran.
Thank you. You're listening to another edition of the DJ Doran Show. I am your host, DJ Doran, and tonight we have an interesting show. I'm here in the studio with producer Nick, and we just had a really nice dinner, and we're sort of relaxed and comfortable, and we were just chatting in general about the state of affairs of the world. And I was explaining and sharing with Nick that I had an epiphany of sorts the other day that sort of really gave me a different perspective on things, and I want to share that with you, and we're going to share that with you to get the conversation going about what my views are on why we are in such a polarizing state of life. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, is, I'm not an ideologue. I'm not a left ideologue. I'm not a right ideologue. I'm a truth seeker. And just because I'm a gay man doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be anti-Trump or pro-Trump or anti-Bernie or pro-Bernie or any of the other candidates. I'm not any of those things. I really am trying to sift through all of the garbage that's out there to come to some sort of intelligent understanding of who I'm going to vote for in the fall election. And one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of days was how much work it actually takes to get to the truth. Now let that sink in for a minute. How much work it takes to get to the truth. You hear on all the news shows, they have their perspectives on Trump and on politics and on all of the different candidates on the Democratic side, and you believe it, or you may believe it. But let's say you trust them and you believe what they say, then they've done all the heavy lifting and you just have to agree with them. And you say, you know what? They're telling me the truth about Bernie Sanders, and so I'm going to form my opinion based on what they've told me. So that brings me to a point that happened to me the other day that I think is worth telling, an experience that I think is worth telling. One of my friends on social media shared a meme, and I think it was also shared by actor James Woods, about Bernie Sanders. And it talked about how anyone making $29,000 a year, and they had this mathematical formula, and they said, after your taxes are going to be raised by 52% and blah, 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 you're going to have an effective hourly wage of $7.56, let's say. And, I read that and I thought, that doesn't sound right. So I went to Bernie Sanders' website and I read his policy positions. I actually read all of his policy positions, but I read this one specifically about taxation. And what I realized was that what he put on his website was completely contradictory to what that meme was saying. And the thing that really fascinated me about that meme was the fact how many people were commenting like it was the gospel truth. And I think there were one or two people that were trying to say this is not accurate or this is not truthful and blah, 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 blah. And the horde of social media crazies descended upon them and basically drowned them out because they had no interest in even entertaining the idea or the notion that what they might be saying might have some validity, right? So I said, DJ, let's do some research on this one issue. So I did. I went to his website and I read his policy point, and then that was my first aha moment. Now, I'm just going to state here and now, I'm not a Bernie supporter. I never have been. I think he's an interesting person, but I don't agree with him on many policy positions. But anyway, I decided to research it. So I looked at this, I was like, that's wrong. So then I said, I need to dig a little bit further. So I went and I listened to the speeches where he spoke specifically about taxation. And then I went to YouTube and I researched all the videos of him speaking about taxation. And lo and behold, none of it lined up with what the meme was saying. None of it. Now, I don't agree with a lot of things. This is just speaking about the factual truthfulness of the meme. Now, I know memes are supposed to be entertaining and they're not supposed to be taken seriously. But the truth of the matter is people were taking it seriously. And so the facts didn't line up with the meme. And now I'm thinking to myself, okay, if that's the case, why? What's going on here? And it brought up this unsettling situation that I had to be confronted with, and that is that people are reacting as if they're being told the truth by media, both on the left and the right, both of which who really do not care less. This is what I've come to realize. They really don't care less whether they're telling you the truth or not. What they are doing is trying to get you to react emotionally to be on their side. So Trump wants you to be afraid of Bernie, so that side is perpetuating this view that if he gets elected, this is what's going to happen. If you make $29,000 a year or more, you're going to get taxed at 52% because he wants government to pay for education and healthcare and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the left is saying, oh, if Trump gets elected, he is just going to destroy all these social programs, and he's anti-immigration, he's anti-gay, he's anti-this, that, and every other thing. And then I started to think, that's what this is about. This is not about a discussion to search in the search for truth and to have greater understanding of the issues. This is really a battle for your emotional self. Who can get you to be fearful? Who can get you to feel outrage? Who can get you to feel sad? Who can get you to feel happy? Who can get you to feel angry? Who can get you to feel sad? That's what the state of politics is right now. That's why we can't have civil discussions, because there is no room for it. Because if you're not fighting the battle to win that emotional state of the other person, if you're in that constant tug of war, then people that are actually trying to search for the truth, to have a greater understanding, to gain wisdom about these issues so that they can make an informed, intelligent decision about who the hell they're going to vote for, hopefully to lead this nation, it's non-existent. It's almost non-existent. And so that realization depressed me, because as a host of a show that wants to talk about cultural issues, current events, politics, and things, I felt like I didn't even want to do a show, because I thought to myself, what am I going to talk about? Who is going to listen to someone trying to talk reason or trying to have a genuine conversation about the search for truth? Who is going to listen or be interested in listening to someone that wants to have a greater understanding so that I can be an informed voter and not a passionate, emotional-based voter? And I lost my motivation to do the show the other day because of that, because I just was like, I worked myself into a depression. That was further exacerbated by the fact that when I watch social media, which I do during the day as I'm working, and I see comments from my friends who are wonderful human beings, but they are staunch ideologues on the left and on the right. And I don't think the right has a saying, but on the left, a lot of my friends were like, I'm voting blue no matter who. I'm voting blue no matter who. Let that sink in for a second. What does that mean? And I started to think to myself, what does that mean? It means that I don't care about your qualifications. I don't care about your policy positions. I don't care about whether or not you will be a good leader, or whether or not you will be a thoughtful leader, or whether or not you'll be a compassionate, empathetic leader. I don't care about anything. Nothing. I am going to vote for you because you're ideologically in this position, because all I want is the other guy defeated. So I don't care. You may be 10 times worse than the other guy. I don't care. If you're blue, I'm voting for you. And I thought to myself, how is that better than what we have? How is that better than what we're doing? And how is that not perpetuating the same vicious cycle of over and over and over again, where you've done this, so I'm justified in doing that. You've treated me bad, so I am justified in treating you bad. You behaved bad, so I'm justified in behaving just as bad. And that was depressing. So that's what made me start to think. And then I started to think, okay, why? Why are we feeling this way? Why are we so polarized? It can't all be just that I hate the president, the current president, and I hate his policies, and I hate for what he stands for. I hate the human being that he is. Right? It can't all be that. And then I started to ask myself, well, why are we in the position where we're not making informed decisions or educated decisions, but we're making emotional decisions and watching these media outlets and these politicians trigger our emotions by making statements or making accusations, or by stirring the pot of discontent, so that it forces us to choose a side, either or. And then I had the epiphany. As I was sitting here in the studio and I was just meditating on what I wanted to talk about in the show that I'm doing now, what I realized is that there was a period when I was younger. I mean, I'm old. I'm 59, so I'm older, but I'm not super old. But when I was younger, my parents used to watch the news, the CBS Evening News, I think, and specifically Walter Cronkite. And I know a lot of you who are younger may not know who that is, but at the time, Walter Cronkite was like the most trusted man in America. And he was trusted because he delivered the news. He delivered editorial by saying, this is my opinion. But here's the news. These are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. These are not my opinions. These are the facts. My opinion are afterwards, but these are the facts. And so people believed him when he said X. If he said Richard Nixon, was engaged in criminal behavior, we believed it. We believed it because we trusted him, and we believed it because we counted on him to do the proper due diligence and research and homework and investigative journalism that would support his commentary or would support his news reporting. And then I realized that is why we're in the space that we're in. One is we are a society accustomed to believing what we're told. Now, we challenge things on occasion when they're, extreme, but as a general rule, we trust our government, we trust our politicians, we trust our news people. And when they say something, we believe them. And we form our opinions based on what they tell us because we trust them and we believe what they're telling. But do we? But do we now? That's the question. You hear a lot about fake news, and you see the tug of war between the president and many of the mainstream news organizations and media organizations. And I started to think that the problem is one of the consequences that is probably not really thought about and hasn't been addressed is, what are the consequences of having a discredited news free press, discredited news organizations, or a discredited free press? You have a battle of ideologies. You have one side saying this, the other side saying the opposite, and they're fighting amongst themselves to win the point. They want to convince you that they're right and he's wrong. And he wants to convince you that he's right and they're wrong. But here's the rub. Whereas we used to trust the news media And so when they said something, we believed it. And politicians feared it because you cannot spin the truth. Because if the public has the trust of the news media, they're going to believe what they say. The politician has to disprove that accusation, or they have to defend their position. But now we have a situation where both are equally mistrusted. And so guess what? We have to do our own homework to determine what actually is true. And we are intellectually lazy. We don't do that. So now there is no trusted source that provides the power of saying the truth to the people that in turn go to the polls and vote because they have the power of the truth. Now we have people on both sides that have made us angry, or have made us sad, or have made us happy, or have made us whatever in between. And we go to the polls and we vote our emotion. Who do we hate the most? Who do we hate the least? Who do we love? Who do we love more? Who do we believe? Who do we believe more? Who do we trust? Who do we trust less? And that's how we go to the polls. We don't do our own homework. It's a matter of them convincing us of who they are, what they believe in, what they stand for. And at the time of voting, whoever has gotten the advantage, whoever has made us believe them the most, trust them just a little bit more, love them just a tad more, hate them a tad more, that's who's going to win. It has nothing to do with issues. It has nothing to do with the intellectual understanding of the issues. These people are fighting for our emotional selves, or they are fighting for our passions, because they know that we are a society of talking points and sound bites and headlines. Now, I'm going to caveat that, because that is really depressing when I listen to myself saying it. There are many of us who are willing to do the homework, and we are informed about the issues. But the margins of error in these political races are so razor thin that all it takes is a few hearts and minds of people that fit that description to tilt the balance of an election. You can have all of the well-educated, learned people voting from a position of being informed voters, but you can have Billy Bob from the trailer park in some backwoods state and county who really, some politician spoke to them and said, they're going to take your guns. If you vote for him, he's going to take your guns. Or they're going to kill Jesus. Or, they're going to hate gays, or they're going to, hate women, or they're going to hate blacks and this and that or the other. You get that person and they're going to vote their emotion. Whoever won that battle, that's how they're going to vote. And guess what? Here's the fucking scariest part. Their vote counts just as much as Einstein's if he was alive. Let that sink in for a second. There is no pre-qualification for voting. There is no intelligence test. There's no anything. There's no test. There's no competency test. Nothing. The only prerequisite for voting is that you're an American citizen. And even that is not really a true test, because that is the issue from one side of, let's just say, the Republicans. I'll just say that is they don't want anyone who's not a legal citizen of this country to vote. I can't say I disagree with them. You need a license to drive a car. You need a license to fly a plane. You need a license to go fishing. You need a license to build a house. You need a license to do everything, but you don't need any ID to vote in one of the most important acts of a democracy possible. How is that just not commonsensically ridiculous? It's not like they're asking, let's do a fingerprint and background check. At least have a fucking ID to vote. And shit, in California, you don't have to even be a citizen to have a driver's license. So it's not as though, they can circumvent that too. Now, of course, there are issues of gerrymandering and other issues that still, I think, suppress the vote, and those are all slimy things too, but I'm just talking about this in general. And so now they're like, oh, I don't know anything about the issues. but I want to vote Democrat because they'll let me stay in the country. That they're one-issue voters. How is that okay? It's not okay. But having an understanding of what is happening infuriates me and depresses me at the same time, is because as I researched the information about Bernie Sanders and his tax policy, it made me realize if they're wrong about this, what else are they wrong about? On Bernie Sanders, on Donald Trump, on Mike Bloomberg, on Pete Buttigieg, on crazy Elizabeth Warren, on any of them, right? How do you know what's the truth? Do you know what the truth is? Think about that. How do you know who is telling the truth? I was telling Nick over dinner, I said, I use Snopes. Snopes is a fact-checking website. But how many regular lay people even know what Snopes is? How would they even know where to look for the truth? So you have a small bubble of intelligent people who know how to educate themselves about the issues, know where to educate themselves about the issues, and are reasonably informed about the issues, and they vote. But you have a large block of voters that all the information they get about candidates and the positions that the candidates take are from television or the internet or podcasts like this or just general conversation. That's what's scary to me, folks. That is really what scares me. So in all of this clutter and chatter and this maelstrom of misinformation, I wanted to create a podcast that didn't really care about what your ideology was, that didn't really care about whether or not you disagree or agree with what I'm saying, but that it was a platform to have real discussion, because ultimately I want to be enlightened about what I'm talking about, whether it's politics, current events, or social issues, whether it's about the existence of Bigfoot, the existence of aliens, whether or not the pyramids were built by aliens, or whether or not science is this, whether we actually had a moon landing, whether or not drag queens are relevant, whether or not transgenderism is a legitimate thing. I want to understand. I want to understand about those. And so I'm willing to have a discussion with anyone and everyone that can have that discussion civilly and talk about those issues, because in the end, my only goal is the pursuit of truth toward greater understanding and wisdom, because I think that is what it makes me a better human being. That's what this show is about. So when people say, "Oh, you're a gay guy and how dare you say something nice about Donald Trump or what he's doing or whatever," I respond to that and say, I am not part of anyone's club. I am not going to vote for blue no matter who. I am going to take the effort and take the responsibility as an individual human being to educate myself about the people that are running for office in my district, in my ward, or for the country or for the state. And I'm going to vote for whoever I think is the best candidate for this country. Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Martian. I don't give a fuck. And that's where we need to be. I'm not a Bernie supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm an American supporter. I'm an America supporter. And I want people in the government that work for the betterment of the country and all of its people. Gay, straight, black, white, yellow, polka dot, I don't give a shit. The Constitution is colorblind, it's gender blind, it's sexuality blind, it's ethnicity blind. I don't know what's so hard about that. To me, that's just common sense. The prejudices that we have, of which I have to deal with as well, because, I'm the product of my parents and my upbringing. I have to constantly remind myself that I have to be challenged, and I need to challenge the norm, because I don't want to keep repeating the same cycle. And I catch myself saying, oh my gosh, that was wrong, or that sort of thinking was wrong. And at first I'm like, oh, that's not my fault, but it is my fault, because in the end, it's all a choice. You choose to be the way you are. As a kid, you don't have much of a choice. You're the product of what your parents are telling you you are. But as an adult, you have the choice. Maybe you have some roadblocks that you have to overcome, but it's still ultimately your choice. And that's what my show is about. So each week, whatever topic I'm talking about, my goal is to have greater understanding about what I'm talking about. I want to talk to people that challenge what I believe, because what I believe today is so different from what I believed 20 years ago, and it will be so different from what I believe 20 years from now. All of that is a journey, Lord willing, of course, knocking on fake wood that I make it that long. Because then I'll be 79. Be good-looking 79, but still. And I think that is what my purpose. That's why I wanted to do the podcast. At first, I thought, I don't want to talk about politics because I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on politics. I'm not an expert on policy. I'm not an expert on how the government works. I know just enough to get myself in trouble, but I'm interested in it. It's a topic that I'm interested in. So based on my limited knowledge, this is what I believe today. When I have somebody on my show or when I'm talking with someone, I'm not interested in getting into an intellectual sword fight with you or a fencing match with you. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is challenging you so that you can tell me why you believe what you believe. And maybe because of that challenge, I change my belief. I change my position. Or maybe you change your position. Or maybe we both change our positions because we both learned a little bit more. That is what it should be about. This I'm voting blue no matter who bullshit. I hate that. And we should all hate that. You vote blue because the best candidate for president is blue. But you don't vote blue because it's blue no matter who. You vote because they're the best candidate. If you think that Bloomberg is the best candidate over Trump, then I get that. You vote blue. You vote for him. Doesn't matter. But the minute you start saying, or people start saying, I vote blue no matter who, it just makes it sound like they're nothing but robots. Pre-programmed by ideological organizations, they've won in convincing you that their ideology is superior to their opponent's ideology. And since when do we give up our individuality like that? Since when do we operate like a bunch of lemmings? That's lemming, not lemon. Just make sure. Lemon, I put in my iced tea. Lemmings is a group that all operate in unison. Just wanted to clarify that. So on that note, I didn't think I could rail on it for 30 minutes, but I have. We're going to take a break, and we're going to hear from our friends at Joe Eats World. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about intellectual responsibility. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to The DJ Doran Show. This episode of The DJ Doran Show is brought to you by our friends at Joe Eats World, featuring Chef Joe Morales as he eats and drinks his way through life, sharing recipes, dining experiences, and cooking tips. Be sure to follow him at joeeatsworld.com and on his Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
You're listening to The DJ Doran Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Call 312-235-2281 to speak to DJ.
We're back. You're listening to The DJ Doran Show. And listen, while I'm on the subject, and I'm DJ, of course, while I'm on the subject, you can follow our show on our Facebook page at DJ Doran Show, on Twitter at DJ Doran Show, on Instagram as well. Also, you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Deezer, SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, and just about every other podcasting site that you can possibly imagine. So give us a follow, subscribe to our show, get the latest and greatest episodes as they are edited and published by producer Nick. Wink, wink. Anyway, we're back. We're talking about intellectual laziness. We're talking about the responsibility to do your homework on the issues on which you want to pontificate. And quite frankly, we're talking about the lack of trust between news media, politicians, and us, the voter. And I have really, I don't know about any of you, but I've been sort of burned out. I feel like we've been in a schoolyard fight for 3 years. And I'm tired of the fighting. I'm tired of the name calling. And granted, it's mainly on Trump's side, but Jesus Christ, doesn't he have anybody around him that can tell him to shut the fuck up and stay off Twitter? Now, I get why he's on Twitter, because everybody is so damn corrupt that he's using Twitter to speak directly to his base and motivate and energize them. And quite frankly, it appears to be working. The Democrats look like fools. And as they stand right now, there's none that I think have a chance of unseating him. And if Bernie wins the nomination, which I've already discussed this in a previous show, he can't win the nomination. If the Democrats allow him to get the nomination, they are the party of the ultra-extreme left, and mainstream America is not going to go for that. We're divided nearly 50-50 down the middle, and the people that determine the elections are that small sliver of independents and moderates. And from what I've read, they are scared shitless of Bernie. So he may get the nomination, and he may get 50% of the nation to vote for him, and he may even win the popular vote because it plays well in New York and California, but it doesn't play well everywhere else. Quite frankly, I think that there's so many things that can happen. The Democratic Party has the potential to implode and explode, because if people feel that Bernie was robbed of the nomination because of their abject fear of him getting the nomination, there's going to be a revolt within the Democratic Party and a House divided. I mean, Trump doesn't have to do shit. Just sit back and watch it happen. And don't fuck up. And he'll be reelected. And I might add, for all the people that want Trump out of office or thrown out of office, Mike Pence is waiting in the wings. And you may not know this, but I met him. He was the governor of Indiana, and I lived in Indiana for a while. And he's a fucking frightening character. And he's a religious zealot. So just think about that for a minute before you vote to get Trump out of office. Because if you get him out of office, Mike Pence is going to step up to the podium. Talk about going out of the fire and out of the frying pan and into the fire. So the only way to get Trump out of office is to legitimately vote him out, because it vote him and Pence out. And I don't think that's going to happen. Sorry, folks. You can rail all you want and hope all you want. You can say you're feeling the burn or this or that or the other, but ultimately, I don't believe Bernie has a chance of overtaking the Trump machine. I just don't. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong many times in my life. I could be totally wrong. He may dominate the Democratic side because the field is so freaking weak and unorganized and crazy. I mean, quite frankly, I could run as a Democrat right now and probably dominate the field. Nobody would want that, but still, you know what I'm saying? It's not some great accomplishment to dominate this field of Democrats. So when people say, oh, Bernie won New Hampshire, Bernie won Nevada. Okay, first of all, these are caucuses, and we're talking about like 5,000 people voting. That's not a big accomplishment in a country of 300 plus million people, 350 plus million people. So what I'm saying to you is that in the caucusing process, any one of those Democrats could win still. So I don't make any fuss about Bernie winning caucuses. It's purely optics. Purely optics. Doesn't mean anything. So, but you know what? Guess what? Remember what I said earlier about we're a nation of emotional beings? They're vying for our emotional reaction. Hey, Bernie wins New Hampshire. Bernie wins Nevada. How does that make you feel emotionally? Inspired? Energized? But let's parse it. Let's take it apart. From a practical standpoint, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. It just means that he grabs the headlines for a few days. Now, if he wins Super Tuesday, that's something to be mindful of. That means he's well on his way to securing the nomination. I think that you're going to see other candidates drop by the wayside. And it'll be Bernie and Biden for a bit. But, Biden, as much as I like Joe Biden, I think he's toast. So Bernie and Buttigieg, Bernie and Klobuchar, or whatever her name is. And so, this is the reason why I want to talk about this, is because this is only going to get worse over the next few weeks as we head into the remainder of the caucus and primary season, and we go into the general election. This is going to be a vicious fight for your emotional side. This is going to be a vicious fight for your passion. This is going to be a vicious fight for your truth, because that's what they want. The ultimate battle is not over the facts. They could care less whether you are enlightened or educated or gained any wisdom. They could care absolutely less. I can't stress that enough. What they do care about is that they convince you that they are better than the other person, that the other person is bad, that the other person is evil, that the other person is going to take away your rights, take away your guns, take away your money, take away your freedom, take away your liberty. That's what the fight's going to be about. That those evil Mexican immigrants are going to cross the border and rape and pillage our neighborhoods. That Russia is really determining who our president is, not our election process. That the people in Congress are corrupt, that the president is even more corrupt, and that it's time for us to throw away the Constitution and throw away the fundamentals of our country and evolve into a democratically socialist society. That's what they're fighting for. So when you fight about the issues of this or that or this or that, they could care less. What they want is your fear. What they want is your anger. What they want is your hate. What they want is your love. My friends, that's what this is about. That's why listening to podcasts, I'm here to just challenge you to think for your fucking self. Stop being a robot. Stop letting people lead you by the nose. Think for yourself. Do your homework. Learn about the issues. Learn about what's really happening. Sift through the clutter of misinformation and outright falsehoods. It used to be that you say, oh, they said this or they did this or what have you, and people could, take things out of context and all that. But if you saw a video, it was the truth. Now we don't even have that, because now with the deep fake video process, I can show Obama or Trump or Sanders talking about an issue with somebody else's mouth and somebody else's words, and it looks just like he's talking. And guess what? 5 million likes, 10 million shares, and we don't even bat an eye. There was a deep fake video of Pelosi, I think, recently, where somebody created a video and it looked like she was doing something unseemly or what have you. And it went viral. I thought that was fascinating. Not even accurate. It went viral. And when things go viral, all these different people see it and they comment on it and they create these comment loops and they share and this and that. Next thing you know, this thing is 7 ways to Sunday across the world. And guess what? It's the truth. We all know it's the truth, right? Because we're lazy. We don't want to think for ourselves. So, Mr. Politician, tell me what to think. Show me what to think. Johnny in the basement, who has nothing better to do than to alter videos, makes another video. And we take it as the truth. And it boils down to the fact that, in my view, I don't feel like I have a trusted source. That I can tune into this place and know that what I am hearing and what I am seeing is the truth. Do you? Do you have that? I wonder. So think about that the next time you watch CNN. And by the way, CNN, when Bernard Shaw was on there and it was just starting out, I remember when it first came out, I was one of the first addicts. Because 24/7, you had a news channel that was editorializing and presenting facts and showing the results of their investigative journalism. Not anymore. To be honest, I don't even watch CNN anymore. Pardon me. I don't watch CNN. I met Anderson Cooper at a conference. He's the nicest guy you'll ever meet. I would love to hang out with him and have a drink and whatever, but I don't believe him. I don't believe, Chris Cillizza or Aaron Burnett or any of these people. They're so blatantly biased. It is unbelievable. I don't believe what they say has any sort of objectivity. They're just outraged because they hate Trump because they believe he's a liar. And he is a liar. No argument there. He is a liar. But let me decide for myself. Don't report it as fact when it's really your opinion. So I don't have any trusted source. So when I watch the news, it's funny because I'll go through CNN, Yahoo, Fox News, NPR, what's that, Flip Chat or Flip something or whatever. And I just read all sorts of news. I look at the BBC, and it's funny because you can see it. If you look for it, once you become aware of it, it's everywhere. So like when they talk about a candidate or a politician that they agree with, they show photos in their news feed of that candidate looking stately or pensive or regal, if you will. And then they show Trump looking like he's having an epileptic seizure, or any of his cabinet looking like they are constipated and have all these distorted facial expressions. These are the subtle ways that they influence your emotion, because when you see those things, you're like, oh, what a creepy looking person. Oh, but look at them. They look like they're angelic, and the only thing missing is a light from heaven on them. And I've just learned to see it, and I've learned to be repulsed by it, because now I feel manipulated, like they're trying to manipulate me by manipulating my emotions, by manipulating an image, by manipulating a headline. So my little diatribe has literally gone on for 45 minutes, and I'm glad that I got it off my chest, because it's something that I've been chewing on for the last couple of days, and I think I found my voice about it. My show is not always exclusively about politics and current events, but the one thing that is constant is that whatever topic we're discussing, I am genuinely, intellectually curious. I want to learn about what I'm talking about. I want to be challenged about what I believe today. I want to challenge others to articulate what they believe and why they believe it, so that I can have greater understanding myself. And that's what this show is about. So whether it's LGBT issues, whether, a question about what do I think about drag queens, or what do I think about pride, or what do I think about this or that, or whatever, the common thread of the show is that we have intellectual, civil, cerebral debate about a subject, so that by the end of the show, if we're both lucky, we both learned something that we didn't know before. And maybe our mind is changed. Maybe our heart is changed. Or maybe a seed is planted that will not change how I feel or how you feel today, but it may germinate as time goes on and then have the impact. Not every battle has to be won immediately. Not every point has to be decided immediately. Sometimes you have to hear a hard truth, and it takes a couple of days or a week or a month or longer for it to sort of knock around in your head before you finally have that aha moment and you say, I don't agree with that. I understand it, but I thought about it. I don't agree with it. Or, wow, they made a really good point. And Rachel, who was my sometimes co-host for a while, and who, if you're listening, Rachel, I miss having you on the show, she would always say things and I'd be like, oh my God, you're fucking crazy. But then after a while I would think, oh, I kind of see that point. I didn't look at it from that perspective before, and it would slowly sort of eke its way into my subconscious, and I would think about it. And not all the time, but sometimes I would change my position. And I think that is what I want to do with my show. There's so much to talk about. There's so many things going on in my own personal life, and we're gonna take a break here, really quick, and then we're gonna do our final segment. I'm gonna talk about a little bit about like what's going on in my life and why I want to continue to do this show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So far away, and I can't see for good. Any chance that I clear the background, I will say I would.
You're listening to the DJ Doran Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Call 312-235-2281 to speak to DJ.
All right. We're in the final segment of the show, and that was a little abrupt, but you know what? There's so many buttons, and I don't have the dexterity to manage everything. Regardless of that, I want to talk about something I've been going through for a while, and I don't know if I'll ever totally figure it out, but, most people comment that they can see that I'm reasonably educated, and I go out of my way to try and continually educate myself. I mean, I think I'll learn or have the desire to learn for the rest of my natural-born life. I love to read. I love to research. I'm a researchaholic. I want to know what I can know, as much as I can know. And I think in all 59 of my years of being on this earth, I don't think that has ever ebbed at all. And so I love that. I love that I have that. But, I don't have all the answers. I don't have an understanding of everything. I have my understanding of what I understand. I have an understanding of what I've experienced in life. As a publisher of LGBT publications, as the president of a media organization, a nonprofit media organization of multiple publishers, as a business person, as an entrepreneur for over 35, 40 years. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. We've lived on a sailboat, a 60-foot sailboat for 3.5 years. We drove across the United States in a motorhome for a year, just meeting people and seeing what the real America was about, which was a blast, by the way. I'm hoping to fly a World War II aircraft around the world in a couple of years to be the first openly gay pilot to circumnavigate the globe by air as the pilot. I have a lot going on, and I have a lot that I'm curious about. And people ask me, well, why are you doing a podcast? Because I am exhausted by the vitriol. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. No matter where you are, it's everywhere. It's on social media. It's on the web. It's in conversations. It's everywhere. It's in newspapers. It's on TV. I wanted to create a show where people can actually talk about whatever they want to talk about without the name calling, without fear of, oh, I don't agree with DJ, so he's going to cut me off, or he's going to belittle me, or he's going to talk down to me or be condescending. I wanted to create a show where people could actually talk and learn about issues that affect them, either directly or indirectly. We both can learn about issues that affect us directly or indirectly. And I want to talk about interesting things, not just politics and current events, things that happen in real life, like road rage. If you've ever driven in a big city like Chicago, you understand what that's about. People cutting you off and giving you the finger and honking and, all in the pursuit of getting to their destination 30 seconds before you. Things like that, or movies or books or activists or people doing good or being good. I want to share this one thing as we close out the show. I saw a video today on Facebook, and I've seen it before, and I don't know why, but today it really moved me. And you probably have seen it because I think it went viral. It's this troupe of little ballerinas on a stage, and the littlest girl is crying, and everyone else is dancing except her. She's just standing on the end crying, and the teacher is trying to console her, but she is completely inconsolable. And a few seconds later, this big, burly, muscular, I must say, good-looking dad shows up on stage with his baby on, one of those things that that they wear in the front where it's like a harness, but it straps the baby so they're facing the front of you. Walks on stage, and he starts talking to his daughter and holds her hand, and he starts dancing with the rest of the troupe. And she's standing there. She's doing nothing but watching her dad. And before you know it, this little girl is dancing with the rest of her troupe. And her dad, who towers over even the teacher, is out there doing pirouettes and kicks and whatever, holding the little tiny hand of his daughter, who is now participating in the dance. And I watched that for a couple of minutes, and I thought to myself, that is life. That is what keeps me going. The knowledge that there are good and decent people in the world, that there are good dads and good moms and good people trying their best to do the right thing, whatever that may be for them. And yet we don't see that enough. We don't hear about that enough. And I want my show to be about not only tackling important issues and having hard discussions, but also reminding us that there are good and decent people in the world, that there are good and interesting people in the world, that there are fascinating stories just waiting to be told and listened to, that there are people that are making a difference in their community, making a difference in their state, making a difference in their country and government and in the world. And these people don't get enough airtime because it doesn't sell, it doesn't garner the ratings because it's good. And so that's why I want to do the show. I am continuing to do the show, and I think I have an understanding now that we can have fun doing the show. We can talk about difficult issues. We can challenge the norms. We can shake up what's being said out there. We can have a unique voice about what it's like to be a gay person navigating life. You know, I can't talk about what it's like to be a lesbian, but I can talk with a lesbian. I don't know what it's like to be transgender, but I can talk to someone who is transgender. I can talk about me. Who am I? What is my pathway through life? How did I get here? I had a conversation with someone the other day. Oh, I think it was producer Nick, and I sent him a photo, and I said, you know, I watch all of these people being recognized in award ceremonies in the LGBT community, LGBTQ plus community. And I said, you know, I don't begrudge any of these people winning their awards for doing what they're doing, but there is nobody that looks like me being recognized for our contribution to society or contribution to the LGBT community. Now, I see, strike that. I got to backtrack. It's not there's nobody. There are very few of people out there like me. And I thought to myself, why can't I create a show for people like me? Older gay men who are struggling with their identity, who are struggling to find where they fit in and how do they fit in. You know, when you no longer have a six-pack, but rather a keg. When you no longer have a full wavy head of hair, but you have some hair that might be full and might be wavy, but not both. You wear a baseball cap because it makes you look better, or you just don't want your bald spot to get sunburned, which is a thing, by the way. It happened to me in Mexico, and it hurts because then the little button on the top of your hat right here, it hurts every time it touches it. These are things you don't think of when you're a kid or when you're younger and you have a full head of hair because that button never has any contact with the skin, let alone sunburned skin on the top of your head. That's what my show is. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about anything and everything. Why? Because I'm a perspicacious guy. I know something about some things and I know less about other things. I know more about that and this and what have you. But more importantly, I love the discussion. I love the debate. I love the intellectual challenge. I love to learn. I'd love to be to have that aha moment. Say, oh, I didn't know that. Now I know that. And now I have a different perspective. That's what the show is about. That's what motivates me to go forward. It's not being an expert. I'm not an expert. And I challenge those who think they have the answer. You know, it's like I always think when someone says, I have the answer regarding religion, if you do this and that and this and that. No, you don't. That's your perspective. You have the Bible or the Quran or whatever you have as your as your guide. But the truth of the matter is, our journey through life, our journey through our relationship with religion or politics or curiosity or accomplishment or business or education is our own. It's ours. And there's a lot of failure in that process. You know, Michael Jordan gave a speech years ago, and I don't know if I can remember all of it, but I'll try and remember it. And he says, you know, everybody recognized me for being great and all of my successes, but I took 300 shots and missed. I tried, you know, this so many times and failed. And he went on and on and on. He said, I've had more failures than I can count. And it made me feel good because I have a lot of failures. And I would need a whole other show to start counting and listing them. But there's a lot of failure. We all go through failures. Failure to understand we made a wrong decision. We made, a wrong this. We did this wrong or whatever. But it's not the failures that defines us. It's the journey. It's the growth. It's what do we learn from that? The person I am today would not be here if it wasn't for the successes and failures that brought me to this point. And instead of trying to make excuses for those failures, I've learned to embrace them. I've learned to wear those scars, if you will, with pride. And that, to me, is what my show is about. Let's learn. Let's discover. Let's be curious. Let's take that journey so that we have greater understanding and wisdom, no matter what we're talking about. And by the way, I want to talk about these things in a civil way, in an intellectually curious way, in an intelligent way. Now, I'm going to leave this with my final thought. If you're an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole to you. If you're going to get on the show and just be an asshole, I'm not going to tolerate that. I shouldn't say I'm going to be an asshole to you. I'm just not going to tolerate that. That's not what this show's about. And I don't have to give you a platform to spew that vitriol. But if you want to call on the show and you want to speak intelligently and articulate your point and challenge the status quo, great. I will never cut someone off for that. I hope you'll tune in to the show as we talk about everything and anything. I'm so excited now. I've sort of found my footing to a degree of what this show is about. I'm not talking about the same things that everyone else is talking about. I'm not parroting any ideology. I am introducing you. I'm inviting you to have a conversation with me. And I'm a complicated, curious guy. And that is going to make a good show, no matter what the topic is. The topics are almost secondary. So each week I invite you to listen to the show and walk with me as we talk about whatever. Learn with me as we dig around and try and find the truth about whatever we're talking about. Enjoy the show because it's entertaining, and sometimes I can be quite funny. Although this show tended to be a little bit more serious because I really felt like I wanted to get this off my chest. And quite frankly, I feel relieved that I purged this poison that has been circulating through my veins for a while. And each show is going to be a better experience. And hopefully you'll come to be one of my friends. Thank you for sharing this hour with me. I look forward to continuing this conversation. It's almost like every week I'm going to sit in this oversized, overstuffed leather chair in my studio and invite you in and talk about whatever. So until then, I hope you'll subscribe and follow the DJ Doran Show and have a wonderful evening. Thank you again. Good night. Thanks for listening to another edition of the DJ Doran Show. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Podomatic, Stitcher, and all of the other major podcasting sites. Just search for The DJ Doran Show.